Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you on the Object 168G, which stands for German. So does that make it fun? Well, that's what my job is to let you know today. This vehicle is very lightly armored for a medium, and it gains at least a reasonable amount of speed, but hopefully some firepower, as it's the first tank that has 340 alpha damage in the game, I believe, with a 107mm gun. Is it worth sacrificing armor on a medium tank to be able to gain a little bit of firepower and speed? Let's find out. So I'm going to be comparing the Object 168 German to the Object 274, and we can see these vehicles are very similar. The Object 168 has decent damage per minute, 3 less than the 704A, the same penetration on the standard rounds. If we look at gold, it's 285 compared to 289. Wargaming just almost adjusting these just to make it look like they're actually different, and the alpha is tiny bit different at 340 compared to 320. Now this 340 can be very nice for feeling meaningful with revealing yourself, but it's not as if this is a high alpha damage medium like you would be having on your guard, for example. The HE rounds on this vehicle are quite surprising. 450 damage for 62mm of pen gives it an advantage over the 274A as well. So all in all, firepower in this tank, it's good. There's no doubt it's good. Now let's take a look at the gun handling. Really good, actually. 2.1 seconds aim time, 0.34 accuracy, and good enough dispersion that you could get away without vert stabs if you felt like investing into a different aspect of the tank. But the gun depression on this tank, that is a different story altogether. 5 degrees, and when we take a look at it, this is only 5 degrees right over the front of the tank. Because the vehicle is actually slightly tilted forwards, that means that as soon as you go over the side of the vehicle, you're down to 4 degrees here, then you're down to 3 degrees here, and then over the back of the tank, you're at 2 degrees. I cannot communicate how insanely frustrating this tank can be when you've got 5 degrees here and then you want to, use your turret to be able to engage something else, and you're down to 3.5 degrees over the side of the tank, which is practically unusable, and it's one of my biggest hates about this vehicle. And yeah, that 5 degrees which goes down to 3.5 over the side of the tank sucks compared to the Object 274A 6 degrees. Speed wise, 60 forwards, decent power to weight ratio, decent reverse speed, and better ground resistances, at least apart from on soft, than the 274A, make this a reasonably quick tank. But look, even on medium, it can only get up to 52 out of its 60. So it's a bit like a 274A in a way, where it does have that top speed, but it still can't help but feel a little bit sluggish. But what is really going to surprise you is that even though this vehicle is about 10% faster than an Object, a 274A, its armor just completely sucks. 70 at the front, 50 at the side, 150 on the turret, 180 on the hull. And if I show you how this armor works out, let's imagine you're getting shot by 227mm of pen. Oh yes, great. Yeah, that turret isn't going to work against practically anything apart from maybe some tier 6s that you meet. The hull armor isn't going to work against anything. And the only reasonably good thing about this tank is that 50mm of side armor means that you can ricochet if you side scrape, and you can manage to bait people into making stupid plays, or if you're just wiggling as you drive at someone. But all in all, it's got some of the worst armor on any medium tank in the game. Fortunately, 1,300 hit points means that it'll be able to at least take a shot, unlike the 274A. And passing mention should be made to the camo rating of this tank, which is nice. You can set it up to be very sneaky, but only just a tiny little bit better than the 274A within that regard. The view range of 390 as well. It's decent. Means that you won't need coated optics on this tank if you have a full crew and a premium consumable. Talking about crew, what would I recommend putting on this vehicle? So for your commander, take Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Recon, Emergency, and Coordination. For your bonus perks on your Radio Operator, Situation Awareness, Jamming, and Firefighting will do well. If you really want to be risky, then maybe take Communications Expert instead of the Firefighting. But that's probably if you're not going to use a premium consumable. For your gunner, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Snapshot, Deadeye, and Designated Target will work very well on this tank. For your driver, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Off-Road Driving, Engineer, and I'm going to take controlled impact because you sometimes will have to ram in engagements in this tank. But if you absolutely hate ramming, then maybe take smooth ride instead. For your loader, I'm going to be taking brothers, repairs, concealment, intuition, ammo tuning, and perfect charge. And the intuition is specifically for HE and also just to try and be a little bit eco with the AP rounds on this tank. Equipment-wise, I'm going to be running 2 builds on this tank. One is going to be vents, gun rammer, and a turbo. I'm going to be using experimental turbo. If you want to just use a regular turbo and put that in the slot, you'll have a little bit better engine power, but your gun handling will be worse. And for my second build, vents, vision system, exhaust will allow me to get up to 36% camo with 450 meters view range, and also have that vision system to start penetrating some bushes. Field mods on this tank, nice and simple. Module durability increase, accuracy, take the camo rating, and then I'd recommend the scouting slot to improve your vents along with the turbo or to improve that vision system. So let's see how this very lightly armored medium tank does on the battlefield. Okay, so firstly we are going to be rolling out on Runeberg in a tier 9 matchup, and you wouldn't really think this is the kind of map for this tank, right? Runeberg, a map which is kind of close quarters combat. You're going to have some armor, so on and so forth. Honestly, in this vehicle, I am going to be aggressive. I really can't see any sort of other reason to play this vehicle. There's 2 ways you play it. One is that you use its reasonable speed and pretty oppressive gun to get into position quickly, and the other way is to try and play a bit more like a sniper. But oh, hello there, Mr. Borask. How are you doing? Oh, that's a rather unfortunate start for you. What about if I was to, oh yes, ram you and grind into you there a little bit? Great, so that's a good start. Shows you that controlled impact on this tank, it's not the lightest, it does weigh 40 tons. And remember, its frontal hull armor is still 70. That's enough to be able to do some funky stuff. So I do think that controlled impact is a really good pick on this vehicle, because it can give you the edge against a light tank, it can give you an edge against an autoloader, like in that engagement. And I've now set the tempo for my team, taken a very important line of fire, and now all that's left to do is to try and use it, right? To try and use it. So this tank's gun, it's decent, but it's really not revolutionary. I know that it's the first tank that has 340 alpha, but there are so many tanks that have better alpha at tier 9 that are also mediums. The Chimera's packing 440, the Guard's packing 390, the T-34-3 is packing 390 as well. Should have loaded a gold round there. Well, I guess I should have aimed just a touch longer. But wow, that's some spotting we're getting on that Tiger 2. Absolutely wonderful. And the next shell goes right through the front of the German heavy tank. And he is shut down, and we mop up the entirety of their vehicle with regards to the spotting and the damage that we dealt. This 340 Alpha, it's okay. And remember, this vehicle's gun handling is pretty good for a Soviet tank. There's no doubt. It definitely does feel more like a German tank within that regard. I guess the real problem is that it just doesn't feel that special when you think about what German guns mean. What does a German gun mean? Well, I'm thinking like Leopard. I'm thinking better alpha damage than most of the mediums of its tier, and like very good accuracy with good gun handling as well. Now, this tank has okay gun handling. It doesn't have great gun handling. It has okay accuracy. It doesn't have great accuracy. And it has okay alpha, but it's not great for its tier. And then when you combine that with shell velocity, that it's decent at 118, and I think the gold round's at 1,477. I think I'm taking shell tuning to be able to achieve that, by the way. They're okay. They're okay. If there's one hidden statistic that I probably should have talked about inside the review, that is that it actually has quite cheap ammunition. It's only 250 credits per shot. So if you do get into one of those games where you don't have to fire gold, then it can actually be quite an economical tank to play that will make certain players who want to sit at decent distances a fair old amount of credits. But the problem is there's so many other tier 8 tanks that I think I could recommend that have a similar playstyle. You could play a G-Saw, for example, have better alpha, definitely better gun handling, I'd say. Sure, you lack the armor there as well. I'd say the G-Saw has comparable mobility, maybe a little bit better mobility, but there's one thing the G-Saw definitely has over this vehicle, and that is pretty much double, if not triple, the gun compression in certain areas of the tank. And that is really one of the most painful things that you will come to grips with if you do get the Object 168G. And that is that this gun depression is just so severely limiting as to the positions that you can use on the battlefield. You can have all the speed to be able to get there. You can have all of the firepower to be able to contest your opponents. But if you don't have the flexibility, then it's just not ideal. It's really not ideal. So, in this kind of a situation, I just want to try and get some shots out towards the east. Try and maybe bait some opponents towards the west like I did the Tiger 2. But if they don't push, then nothing's going to happen. Oh, well, talk about that. Hello there, Mr. Super Pershing. How you doing? I guess I'll just go back into my safety. Super Pershing misses an APCR round. I'm loading AP for them. Will I be able to get the lower plate or try and go for the weak point? Shell flies high, and I'm going to load a gold round now, so I'll be able to go through his lower plate. My team manages to hit the Super Pershing. I hear the Super Pershing fire, and so that is easy pickings for me. But wow, a low roll. Minus 39 there, leaving him on 9 hit points. Didn't expect that, but the Leopard prototype picks up the kill. We have a bat chat as well. That should be a good opportunity for me. Maybe not. And combined-wise, this is decent. This is decent right now. 3,800 combined is very nice for any tier 8 medium tank. And we've got a lot of hit points as well that we can continue to play with. Right through the side of the turret. Lovely. It's a decent gun. It's a decent gun. But it just isn't enough, is how I feel about this tank. It's a decent gun, but it's not enough. There are lots of tanks that have decent guns for their tier 8s, or even better guns. But those tanks, sometimes they have armor, or they have mobility. And this tank doesn't have either of those. Oh, I really feel like I'm baiting a bear when I shoot a BZ-176. But luckily, when he turns his turret to the side, the Skoda T-56 can deal with him. I'm going to come around the corner and go for the AMX-30, and ooh, that was clutch. I'm happy about that one. Have a quick look at the Jagdtiger. I probably shouldn't be chasing the Jagdtiger right now. It doesn't really have enough hit points. He's probably going to die to my CC Mark II, or the 705 as the case may be. And, oh, just a tasty artillery. Am I going to reload an HE shell here? Oh, yes, I am. This HE has decent damage. I should take more HE shells, by the way. That's a categorical misplay. I do not have enough HE shells in this tank, and they're actually very useful indeed. So don't be a noob like me, and take at least 5 to 6 HE shells on this tank. The intuition can really pay off. And with that 62mm of pen and 450 alpha, man, if you start to pack 450 alpha, that's a big upgrade. Now you're starting to have 3,000 base damage per minute, and that can be a terrifying thing for a variety of vehicles. So far so good for the Object 168G. We're up to 5,000 combined on Runeberg with 3 kills. We're just going to push in now and try and get some juicy, tasty rewards at the end of the game. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Not much hope with crappy armor, really. And really not enough grunt in the engine to be able to get into the position. Maybe a little bit of a greedy play here, but I thought that this game was going to be an easy win. And spoilers, it does end up being an easy win. So let's do it again. We're going to be rolling out this time on Pearl River. And again, against some tier 9 tanks. Honestly, this vehicle, if there's one thing that's refreshing, it doesn't really matter what kind of vehicles you play against. Obviously, you might start to lack a little bit of pen for tier 10, but that 285mm of gold pen, it's half decent. But when you've got no armor, does it really matter? Not at all. Okay, Leopard. Our side armor there of 50 actually works out well. I'm going straight into the danger zone right now. Blesk takes 473. We're going to continue up the slope, not at the fastest speed, considering we're using experimental turbo. 463 into the back, and I'm only down to 1 HE shell, so categorical misplay once again, Uncle QuickyBaby. Get your ammo loadouts right. This tank's decent HE, and looks like the old Revenant is not going to be coming back from that anytime soon. Oh well. Nice AP shell here on the Borask. Lovely jubbly. And yeah, when this tank is in its environment, where it's either brawling against light tanks at the start of the game, or it's managing to then get some good snipey locations. Yeah, but whoa, what's that gun depression? Look at that. Look at that, boys and girls. I had to turn my tank to the side, I believe, there to be able to get a little bit of extra. The gun depression on this vehicle is by far the worst thing about it. By far the worst thing about it. And for a lot of you, that might not be the biggest of deals, but for me, it's absolutely tank breaking. I will never enjoy this vehicle. because of that gun depression issue that the vehicle has. I just never enjoy it. All right, Mr. Well, I mean, I say I never enjoy it, but when I'm getting lucky and avoiding shells and hopefully getting the WT Alpha Panzer IV, I'm enjoying it there. Yeah, there we go. So I wanted to go around the corner to look after the T-95, but that WT Alpha Panzer IV and all the snipers up there are making me concerned, especially now the DZ-T159 is down. That means that he's not going to be distracting those TDs and they're going to engage us. So instead, I'll try and help out this UDES-33, who maybe is reloading and struggling with a conceiver on the enemy team. So we're going to come around the corner, going to put a shot into the lower plate, and lovely. Doesn't fire at me, so nice. They're going to be a one-shot for me now. Is the UDES going to make the play? Will I make the play? This game's neck and neck right now. We're down a kill, and even on hit points. Great shot. Through the side with gold. I probably over-angled just a touch there. I probably could have angled better and been able to bounce off my side armor. But this vehicle, it just feels oh so hard for those kind of scenarios when you actually have to push through a breach, because again, you have no armor to be able to work with it. So in this kind of a situation, the enemy have got two strong positions, and I feel like what I want to do is to create some angles on my opponents. So I want to slip up and maybe try and get towards their spawn area, but oh dear, the TS5. Is he going to spot me? Yes, he is. Well, the gig is up. I'm not able to do that, and there's that Spatuk. Maybe actually getting spotted there saved me, because I probably got blazed by that Spatuk making their way up there. So, whatever. I've been caught. Let's get out of there again and just resign ourselves to just being in the center of the map instead. So I'm trying to put this vehicle together for all of you and try and think, does it actually have players who will enjoy playing it? I don't think it will. That's one of my conclusions about this tank. I can't in good faith recommend this vehicle for the vast majority of players. I think if you want to get a sniping Soviet tank, then you could get yourself a guard for bonds and not have to pay to get this tank. You wouldn't have to gamble inside loot boxes to be able to get this vehicle. If you want to play something with a little bit of speed, there's so many different vehicles that you could be able to play. If you want to have something that has armor, well, you could play everything else. A 274A is practically this vehicle with just a little less alpha, but so much better armor that you can just sit in front of your opponents quite often, especially in nice matchups. You can sit in a hold down position with your turret with 6 degrees of gun depression. You don't have bad gun depression over the side. The only players who might enjoy this vehicle is people who just absolutely must have half-decent guns and don't care about armor at all. If you don't care about armor at all and have half-decent guns, then maybe this will be a good tank. You know what this vehicle kind of feels like? It feels like playing a T-54 that just isn't fun down a tier. It's like you've stripped all of the excitement and the adrenaline out of a T-54. Has similar kind of armor loadout. Let me say a T-54 lightweight is what I'm trying to say, not like a T-54. T-54, that's a different kind of animal. That's an amazing tank at tier 9. I'm saying a T-54 lightweight. This tank kind of reminds me of playing the T-54 lightweight back when it used to be at tier 8, but just doesn't have the engine power and doesn't have that fury in the gun. That 250 alpha with the much better rate of fire. And so I just think this tank is no fun. And the gun depression just irritates the living hell out of me. In all the situations here, we haven't had to use gun depression. But what maps do you see me showcasing in this tank review today? I'm showcasing maps that have early positions that you can be aggressive to get into. Definitely one of the strengths of this vehicle. It has a reasonable amount of firepower and a reasonable amount of armor versus light tanks for positions you can rush into. But you haven't seen me play those Redshires, those Muravankas, those Lakevilles, all of those kind of maps where really medium tanks with gun depression do oh so well. And this vehicle oh so can't. So it comes down to more of a case of being a little bit sneaky. The camera rating there more than the Spatuk could handle. Unfortunately, he spots me. We're going to come around the corner, hopefully get this WT Alpha Panzer IV. It doesn't have the depression over the back. I know how that feels after playing this tank, mate. I know your pain, Mr. WT Alpha Panzer IV. We put a shot into you earlier and put a shot into you here, and with a nice couple of kills there. We're the glue that's keeping this team together right now. So I don't think going up after an IS-3 and a TS-5 is really what my strength is going to be. So instead, I'm going to go and try and fight two higher tier mediums who, to all intents and purposes, are on full hit points. That could be a little bit ugly, right? That could be a little bit ugly. Well, we'll see how it's going to go. All right, so I'm going to come to the conclusion about this tank. I don't really like it. I don't really like it. I think it's boring. It's definitely one of the worst vehicles, or the worst vehicle of the new tanks that you could get inside the loot boxes this year, the St. Patrick's Day loot boxes. I'm sure that some of you will still do okay in it. I'm sure that some of you will even go as far to enjoy it. But honestly, for me, it does have miracle armor, but to have that kind of like, you'd have to roll out a 6, like a 1. They'd have to roll a 1 for you to ricochet. And it just doesn't quite have enough mobility. If it had like a 24 power to weight ratio, this tank would be exciting. But it just doesn't. It's not fast. And even when I'm using an experimental turbo like this, it just doesn't really feel like it's getting around that many of those lovely German sniping tanks do. I'd far rather play a Leopard prototype. I'd far rather play the latest tank. What is it? The Concept Erich Panzer EK1, you know. I'd far rather play that at tier 9. They have similar ideas, but that tank just absolutely makes this vehicle look atrocious. And here is the main conclusion about this tank. This position looks fairly innocent, right? Looks good. Nice. Come on, Mr. IS-3, I've got you now. Right through the side, easy, full aim. UDES spots me at a distance. Alright, let's get that UDES. Guys, I can't depress here. I can't depress. I have to go forwards to be able to shoot. Let me just pause that for a second. This position, I do not have enough gun depression here to engage the UDES. And I turn my tank to the side thinking, well, if I turn my tank to the side, then my turret will be able to go left and right and make my turret a harder shot for the UDES when I receive the fire, because there's no way for me to pull back, I don't think, fully to be able to avoid the UDES shell entirely. I go forwards and I can't depress. I turn my tank to the front to try and get the extra gun depression. I can't depress. And this moment here, it wasn't just happening in this replay. It happened so many times, boys and girls, that you just forget that your vehicle has horrible flexibility. And for every time in this tank where you get to use almost your elevation to be able to engage your opponents because you're on a slight downslope, or you use your speed to go in and take out those lights, take out those lightly armored mediums, you get into situations like this where you can't depress the gun. And then you follow up by getting rushed by UDES. Your shell, he turns his armor. Well done, my dude. Can't reverse that fast. Oh. Probably should have just rammed forwards there to be able to get a little bit of extra damage. Spoilers, we're going to go on to win this game. But that last moment, that is the Object 168G in a nutshell. This whole game was the perfect example of this tank. It's okay for rushing into position. It's okay if you fight those lights, those lightly armored mediums, and you play well. You'll be able to get them. The problem is, when you need flexibility, this tank just doesn't deliver. And honestly, on a fun scale, for me, it doesn't deliver as well. And you know me, I love my fast, aggressive tanks. But there are so many more faster, better, more aggressive tanks with autoloaders or with better armor or better gun depression that could be able to justify your time. Statistically, I don't think this thing is going to get very good statistics. I think a lot of players will really struggle with the armor, and that's all there is to say about this vehicle. It's not like a joke tank. It's not a joke tank. It's not fun in any way, and I don't think it's going to be competitive. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my full review on the Object 168G German, aka I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Object 168G. Does this look like it's the tank for you, or do you think it's just the 10th Tier 8 Soviet Premium German, it's the Soviet tank, name's confusing me right now, that we have in the game, and it looks irrelevant. And if you're watching this video as it's released on Friday, I'm going live all day on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby with brand new drops tokens, so come along, grab them, get closer towards your free Dicamax or your SU85i, and hopefully check out a few good games along the way. And as always, thank you so much for watching, you've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.